Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Enjoy the story. It was supposed to be just another Wednesday morning at the Stanton Hotel. The top floor was reserved for a high-stakes board meeting, contracts worth $40 million, tension so thick it could crack the glass walls. Alexander Pierce, the infamous young CEO of Pierce Capital, sat at the head of the table in a tailored navy suit, tapping a Mont-Blanc pen like a ticking bomb. "This acquisition must close by noon," he said coldly. "Delay is weakness. Weakness is unacceptable." Everyone nodded. That's when the door burst open. Not gently. Not with apology. A waitress stumbled in, breathless, holding a silver tray with 2 espresso cups. One cup slid, the other tilted. Time slowed. "Room service," she blurted. Wait, wrong floor?" A single cup tipped. And landed directly in the CEO's lap. For 3 seconds, no one breathed. The room froze. Alexander stared down at the wet blotch on his $1,000 trousers. "Do I look like I ordered espresso?" he said slowly. The waitress blinked. "Depends. Do you like it strong?" Someone coughed. Someone else whispered, "She's dead." Let's go back to our main character. Her name is Eliza Quinn. 23. 2 jobs. One dream, law school abandoned after her mom got sick. She worked nights at a downtown diner, mornings delivering coffee to hotel guests with a borrowed badge and a smile that hid exhaustion. She was supposed to go to room 314. She'd ended up in the boardroom of a billionaire. And now she was probably going to get sued. But instead of shrinking, Eliza adjusted her apron, picked up the empty cup, and faced the most powerful man in the room. "Look, I messed up. But that's on the hotel's terrible signage." The room stirred. Alexander raised an eyebrow. "And your logic is I owe you for poor typography?" "No. Just for not firing me before I finish apologizing." He studied her like she was a riddle with no punchline. "You have 5 seconds. To leave? To explain what makes you think you can speak like that in this room." Eliza took a breath. "And said the one sentence that would shift the energy in the building, because your deal," she nodded at the contract on the table, "has a liability clause that contradicts federal code." That's when everything stopped again. Even Alexander. His eyes narrowed. "What did you just say?" And Eliza, not knowing she'd just cracked open the heart of a billionaire, smiled awkwardly and replied, "I used to read legal books." Between shifts. The boardroom air was thick with disbelief. Suits shifted in leather chairs. Eyes darted between Alexander and the girl who wasn't supposed to be there. "Legal books," he repeated. Eliza nodded, cheeks red but chin lifted. "Not the fancy kind. Used ones. With someone else's notes in the margins." A finance director scoffed. "Sir, should we remove her?" Alexander raised a hand. "Which clause are you referring to?" he asked, tone flat. Eliza pointed at the draft on the table. Page 7. Section 4B. It overlaps with the indemnity terms from the vendor side. If that's tested in court, your firm eats the risk. Based on what precedent? He shot back, skeptical. Holman vs. Vertex 2017. Arbitration failed because of dual indemnity. You lose the upper hand if the other party pushes it. Someone dropped a pen. Alexander slowly turned the pages of the contract, then stopped. There it was. Exactly where she said. He looked up. His eyes weren't cold now, just curious. "What's your name?" Eliza Quinn. Not a lawyer? Nope. I'm a waitress with a caffeine problem and a thing for footnotes. Silence again. Then Alexander stood. Everyone, give us the room. But sir, I said clear the room. The directors filed out, murmurs under their breath. Now it was just the billionaire and the girl with a tray. Eliza shifted her weight. So should I go get a mop or something? Alexander didn't smile. Not exactly. But the corner of his mouth twitched. You just spotted a flaw that 3 legal consultants missed. She shrugged. Maybe they were distracted by the view. He walked slowly toward her. You could have left. Why didn't you? Because people like me don't get to be in rooms like this. And when we speak fast. That one landed. He paused just a foot away. What are you doing tomorrow? She blinked, delivering eggs Benedict to room 302, if the kitchen doesn't forget again. How about coming here instead, he said. 8 a.m. sharp. Sit in on the contract review. Me? You, he nodded. Let's see if lightning strikes twice. Eliza hesitated. Do I need a suit? No, he said. Just don't spill anything this time. She grinned. No promises. As she turned to leave, he added almost to himself, interesting. What he didn't know was that Eliza had already started rewriting more than his contract she was about to rewrite him. The next morning, at exactly 7:59 a.m., Eliza stood outside the same boardroom door this time with dry shoes, a working pen, and a pit in her stomach the size of a grapefruit. She wasn't carrying coffee. She was carrying a yellow notebook with 5 dog-eared pages titled Common Legal Pitfalls in Corporate MA. She took a breath. Then opened the door. Alexander Pierce was already inside, arms folded, staring at the wall-sized screen where Claw's revisions were being projected. His eyes flicked to her. No smile. No greeting. You're on time. You sound surprised, she said, stepping in. I expected coffee. Not highlighters. She held up her notebook. Color-coded, for dramatic effect. He didn't respond. Instead, he nodded to the empty seat beside him. She sat. And just like that, she was no longer the girl who spilled espresso on a billionaire. She was the girl seated next to him in a room full of power, lawyers, and silence. The first slide came up. A man in a dark gray suit cleared his throat. As you can see, we've made minor adjustments to Clause 4B to clarify vendor obligations. Eliza leaned closer to Alexander. That's not clarity, she whispered. That's smoke. He glanced sideways. Explain. Watch the phrasing. They doubled the language to sound confident. But it's circular. Look strong says nothing. Alexander raised a hand. Stop. Let's go back 2 slides. Confused, the lawyer clicked back. Eliza, he said calmly, would you walk us through your observation? She froze. 8 pairs of eyes locked on her. And still she spoke. With respect, this paragraph says the vendor shall ensure due diligence within reasonable operational time frames, which is corporate poetry for we promise nothing. No one moved. Alexander turned to the team. She's right. Rewrite it. Just like that. Eliza blinked. The next 2 hours moved like waves. Legal terms, pushback, strategy. And somehow, every time Alexander glanced her way, she had something sharp. Insightful. Unexpected. She didn't act like she belonged. She acted like she didn't care if she did. When the meeting ended, people filed out quietly. Alexander stayed seated. You speak like you've been in rooms like this before. I haven't, she said. But I've cleaned enough near them. He tilted his head. You know your stuff. She shrugged. Can't afford tuition. But the library's still free. He studied her. Then asked a question he hadn't asked anyone in years. What would you do if you had one shot? She blinked. At what? At proving you deserve to be at the table. Eliza looked at him, really looked. I'd bring a bigger notebook. He smiled this time. Barely. But it was there. You're not just a waitress, are you? I am. But I'm also not only that. Alexander stood. Come back tomorrow. 10 sharp. There's a draft I want your eyes on. She stood too. Why am I working here now? He paused. Call it an experiment. She raised an eyebrow. Unpaid? Temporarily non-traditional. She laughed. You sound like a legal clause. Maybe. But I don't loop in circles. As she left the room, her phone buzzed, 2 missed calls from her boss at the diner. She stared at the screen. Then slid the phone into her bag. Because this time she had somewhere more important to be. Eliza showed up the next day at exactly 9:59 a.m. No tray. No apron. Just a clean button-down shirt she'd borrowed from her roommate and black slacks that didn't quite match but were close enough. The receptionist blinked twice. You again? Trial period, Eliza smiled. Or maybe a corporate hallucination. This time, the door to the executive floor opened automatically for her. No one questioned it. Alexander was waiting at his desk, flipping through a stack of papers. He didn't look up. You're late. She checked the clock. 1000 sharp. Your definition of sharp is aggressive. Precision matters, he said. Especially today. He slid a document across the desk. This is the merger draft with Eastwell Holdings. If it goes through, we become the majority stakeholder in their logistics arm. Eliza sat down slowly, eyes scanning the first page. Seems standard, she said. Look closer. She did. And halfway down page 3, her finger paused. Here, she said. This phrasing: minimum quarterly yield assurance. That's dangerous. He looked at her, interested. Why? Because it creates a false sense of profit stability. If their numbers dip even once, they can blame us for breach of expectations. Alexander narrowed his eyes. That clause was suggested by our senior counsel. And it's smart if you're looking to create leverage during default, she said. But if the press sees it, it looks like entrapment. He leaned back in his chair, watching her like she was rewriting the rules of chess. I'm not here to impress you, Eliza said. I just read fast and worry too much. I don't hire based on impressions, he replied. I hire based on impact. A long pause. Then, without warning, he stood. Come with me. Where? The 42nd floor. The elevator was quiet. Alexander didn't speak. Neither did she. When the doors opened, they stepped into a sleek, open conference space overlooking the skyline. The kind of view that made people forget their names. Inside 12 board members. One chair empty next to his. He walked in like thunder. Eliza followed like lightning, trying to stay quiet. This is Eliza Quinn, he said. She'll be observing. A murmur went around the table. Someone whispered, she's the one from the coffee incident. Eliza felt the heat rise to her ears but didn't flinch. The meeting began. Numbers. Charts. Corporate theater. Then came the moment. A partner from Eastwell brought up the clause Eliza flagged. We'd like Pierce Capital to reaffirm quarterly delivery projections. Alexander didn't look at his lawyers. He looked at her. Eliza? She blinked. Me? You read the clause. What do you think? 12 heads turned. She swallowed hard. Then spoke. I think asking for reaffirmation this early sets a precedent that could backfire. It implies instability. Investors notice that. If I were you, she looked at the Eastwell partner, I'd reword it as a collaborative performance metric instead. Softer. Safer. Still effective. Silence. Then the partner smiled. Fair point. Alexander sat back, just slightly. The girl who once dropped coffee on his lap had just negotiated a contract term. And everyone knew it. After the meeting, as people filed out, one board member leaned toward Alexander. She's not an assistant, is she? No, he said simply, she's a problem solver. Back at his office, Eliza stood at the door, unsure if she should leave. Alexander looked up. You just saved us from a PR nightmare. Cool, she said. So do I get, like, a badge now? He smiled. No badge. But a new desk. Her eyes widened. Wait, are you officially hiring you? No. She blinked. Not yet, he added. But keep doing this and we'll talk. Eliza nodded, heart pounding. She turned to leave, then stopped. Hey, Alexander? He raised an eyebrow. I don't do coffee runs anymore. Noted. But as she left, she heard him chuckle quietly. And for the first time so did the receptionist. By the end of week 1, Eliza had stopped wearing her diner shoes. They still sat in her bag just in case the dream ended, but each morning, she walked into Pierce Capital like she belonged there. Almost. Because not everyone agreed. You know she used to spill coffee in here, right? Someone whispered near the copy machine. She's not even certified, said another voice. No degree. Just a mouth and opinions. Eliza heard it all. But she kept walking. At her new desk right outside Alexander's office she opened the day's schedule. 5 meetings. 2 contracts. 1 press call. She poured herself cheap coffee. But didn't offer anyone else a cup. At 9:00 a.m., Alexander stepped out, checking his watch. You're early, he said. You're predictable, she replied. He didn't smile. But he didn't argue either. Boardroom. Let's go. They walked in together. Not holding hands. But walking in sync. The room fell quiet. A marketing executive started a presentation about the company's annual gala. This year, we're emphasizing community partnerships, she said. We'll invite sponsors, board members, and key faces from our workforce. Someone laughed. What's next? Interns on the red carpet? The room chuckled. Then someone added, louder, or maybe a waitress. It hit like a slap. Eliza didn't flinch. But her pen paused. Alexander didn't laugh. He turned. I think that's a brilliant idea. Silence. The exec frowned. Sir? If this company is proud of its culture, then everyone who contributes deserves visibility. Even especially those who've been underestimated. All eyes turned to Eliza. She didn't look down. She looked up. Later, back at her desk, she bit her lip. You didn't have to do that, she said quietly when Alexander passed by. I didn't do it for you, he replied. I did it because they were wrong. Still, something shifted in her chest. That afternoon, she stayed late. No one asked her to. She reviewed a compliance report line by line, catching an inconsistency in tax filing dates. Scribbled a note. Highlighted the section. Then slid it under Alexander's door. The next morning, he said nothing. But on his desk, her note had been retyped. And signed approved. A. Pierce. At noon, a delivery arrived. A small box. Inside a card. For the girl who reads fine print better than my lawyers. And beneath it a badge. Pierce Capital strategic research consultant Eliza Quinn. She stared at it for a long moment. Then tucked it inside her wallet like it was something fragile. Because it was. This wasn't just a new role. It was the first time her name had appeared on something she didn't have to apologize for. Monday started with thunder. Not in the sky but in the office. Emails flying. Phones ringing. Whispers louder than usual. Eliza walked in with her usual coffee and notebook combo, only to be met with side glances and hurried conversations. Something was wrong. Really wrong. She didn't even make it to her desk before Alexander's assistant stopped her. "He's in the war room," she said. Eliza frowned. "The what?" "Conference room B, he's been in there since 7 a.m. With the legal team." Eliza didn't hesitate. When she opened the door, she stepped into chaos. Documents spread across the table. 3 lawyers talking at once. Alexander at the center, hands clasped, face unreadable. He looked up the moment she entered. "Eliza," he said. "Get in here." One lawyer raised an eyebrow. "She's not on this team." "She is now," Alexander replied. Eliza slid into the only empty chair. "What's going on?" He handed her a document. Eastwell just sent over a revised contract. They added a clause. She scanned it. Then stopped. "Oh no." "Exactly," he said. It was buried section 8C, middle paragraph. A hidden clause granting Eastwell priority access to Pierce's private logistics data in the event of market downturn. "They're planning for a leak," she said. "And a takeover," Alexander added. Silence. "Can we strike it?" one lawyer asked. "If we do, the deal stalls," another replied. "But if we accept it, we hand them the key to our internal metrics." Eliza leaned back. "Or we can mirror it." Alexander looked up. "What?" "We add a reciprocal clause. If either party triggers a downturn clause, access is mutual. It makes it look like a safeguard, not a trap." The room fell silent. Then Alexander stood. "Do it." The lawyers moved fast, redlining the draft. 2 hours later, the updated version was sent back to Eastwell. As everyone left, Eliza stayed seated. Alexander walked over. "You just saved us again," he said. "I'm not keeping count," she replied. "I am." He paused, then added, "Come with me." "To where?" "Someplace quieter." They stepped out onto the rooftop balcony. The city stretched below them, alive with noise and motion. But up he right felt still. "You didn't have to include me this morning," she said. "I didn't want a mistake," he said. "And you think I'm the safest option?" "I think," he said slowly, "that you're the only one who doesn't try to impress me." She looked out at the skyline. "That's because I know I'm temporary." He turned. "Who told you that?" "No one has to," she said. "Girls like me aren't built for long-term in places like this." Alexander was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Maybe it's the place that needs rebuilding." And before she could respond, his phone rang. He checked the screen. Paused. Then turned away to answer. She watched him walk back into the office, still not sure what just happened. But something had shifted again. Not in the company. In him. Tuesday came with clear skies but murky undercurrents. Eliza walked into the office with her usual pace, steady, focused, slightly nervous. But this time, something felt off. Whispers didn't fade when she passed. They grew louder. At her desk, a post-it note had been stuck to her monitor. No signature. Just 2 words, "Lucky Waitress." She peeled it off slowly, eyes narrowing. Inside Alexander's office, the tension had taken form. He didn't look up when she entered. He was staring at his phone, jaw locked. "You okay?" she asked. He slid the phone into a drawer. "Fine." He wasn't. "Eastwell," she guessed. "Worse," he muttered. "Social media." That got her attention. He turned the monitor. A trending hashtag waitress in the boardroom photos. Comments. Speculation. One image showed Eliza sitting next to him at the last meeting. Another was blurry, taken from outside the building captioned "Billionaire's new assistant." Her stomach dropped. "This is bad," she whispered. "It's trash," he said. "But trash spreads." He leaned forward, fingers laced. "They're calling it favoritism. Nepotism. Some even think it's personal." Her cheeks flushed. "And you're bored? They want you gone." A pause. "So am I," she asked softly. He looked at her for a long time. "No," she blinked. "But," he added, "you'll need to step back from visible meetings. At least until this dies down." Her chest tightened. "So I get demoted because I made you look human?" He didn't flinch. "Eliza, no," she cut him off. "I get it. Optics over substance." She stood up, grabbed her notebook. "If they're uncomfortable with someone like me in the room, maybe that room needs better lighting." He didn't stop her. She walked out. Back at her desk, she didn't cry. She worked. Silently, furiously, tearing through compliance forms and review notes like they owed her something. At 3:00 p.m., a delivery arrived. No name. Just a small box. Inside a phone charger, a protein bar and a folded note that read, "Substance always wins." She stared at it. No smile. But her grip on the pen tightened. That night, she stayed until the janitors came. Because she wasn't going to disappear quietly. Not now. Not ever. Wednesday began with rain, cold, uninvited, and oddly fitting. Eliza arrived early. Too early. The office was nearly empty, but she needed the silence. Noise outside was one thing. Silence inside where the doubts lived was harder. She sat at her desk, reviewing logistics proposals like they were battle plans. No gossip. No glances. Just numbers. At 8:17 a.m., Alexander's door opened. He didn't say good morning. Just placed a folder on her desk. New vendor review. Quiet job. Internal only. She looked up. "So I'm officially off the public grid now?" He didn't answer. Just walked away. The silence returned. But not for long. At 10:00 a.m., someone tapped on her desk. It wasn't Alexander. It was Meredith. Corporate PR. All tailored suits and sharper smiles. "Eliza Quinn, right?" Meredith's voice was honey over razors. "Eliza's fine." Meredith smiled wider. "We're doing an internal audit. Media visibility, brand alignment, you've come up in the report." "Sounds fun." "It's standard procedure. For non-traditional hires." Eliza tilted her head. "You mean not rich hires?" "Of course not," Meredith said sweetly. "Just want to make sure everyone's qualified." "I thought results were the qualification." Meredith's smile thinned. "Eliza, image matters. And we can't afford distractions." "So I'm a distraction now?" Meredith leaned closer. "Let me give you some advice. Know your lane. And stay in it." She walked away like nothing had happened. Eliza sat still for a long time. Then, without a word, opened the folder Alexander had given her. Vendor records. Shipment inconsistencies. Tracking gaps. But something didn't add up. The numbers didn't match between Q2 and Q3. She double-checked. Then triple-checked. A name kept reappearing: Evermark Solutions. A shell vendor Pierce Capital hadn't used since last year supposedly. Her heart pounded. Because if these were real invoices, someone was laundering money through dormant contracts. Someone inside. She printed the pages. Highlighted the names. Cross-referenced the accounts. And when she walked into Alexander's office, she didn't knock. He looked up. "Eliza? You need to see this," she said, laying down the papers. Fast. Precise. Like ripping off a bandage. He scanned them. His jaw clenched. "This can't be right." "It is," she said. "And if I'm right, this isn't just fraud." Alexander's eyes narrowed. "It's sabotage." They stared at each other. No rain could drown what she'd just uncovered. The door closed behind them with a soft click, but the air inside Alexander's office was anything but quiet. He stood behind his desk, eyes fixed on the invoices Eliza had laid out. His hands weren't moving. But his mind clearly was. "You're telling me someone's rerouting funds through Evermark?" he asked. "I'm telling you someone's laundering money through a vendor that doesn't exist anymore," Eliza replied. "And using your signature." He looked up sharply. "Mine?" She nodded, pointing. "Digitally replicated. Not perfectly, but close enough that most wouldn't question it." Alexander ran a hand through his hair. Rare for a man who rarely broke posture. Who else has access to these authorizations? She was already ahead of him. 3 senior VPs. 1 from finance, 1 from operations. She paused. And 1 from internal audit. His jaw tensed. "And guess which department signed off on that PR memo about you?" "Eliza being a potential image risk," she said softly. "Yeah, I noticed." He dropped into his chair, face tight with something between rage and restraint. "I need time," he said. "You don't have it," she replied. "If the media finds this first, the narrative becomes Pierce Capital embezzlement scandal, with his favorite waitress at the center." He stared at her. That hit home. "You trust me with this?" she asked. He didn't blink. "I only trust you with this." They worked in silence for hours. Eliza combed through vendor contracts. Alexander called in a forensic tech team under the radar. No board. No public memo. By evening, the dots connected. A dummy account routed through Evermark. 1.2 million missing over 6 months. And the authorization trail? Led straight to Meredith. PR queen. Spin doctor. And now internal thief. Alexander stood, pacing now. "She was at my father's funeral," he muttered. "Told me she'd protect the company name." "She did," Eliza said. "Just not yours." A long pause. "Then I'm calling an emergency board meeting." Eliza frowned. "That puts you in the spotlight too." "She'll spin it as a personal vendetta." "I don't care." "You should," she said. "Or at least let me take the hit." His eyes snapped to hers. "Why would you do that?" "Because I'm used to being underestimated," she said. "And she's not. That's our advantage." Alexander stepped closer. For the first time, no sarcasm, no shield. Just honesty. "I didn't bring you into this for strategy, Eliza." "Then why?" "Because you've seen the worst of this company and you're still here." She looked away. "I don't know if that makes me smart or just stubborn." "Both," he said quietly. Then handed her the stack of papers. "Let's clean house." And together they stepped into war. Thursday, 8 a.m. Boardroom. The walls felt colder than usual, like they knew what was coming. 12 executives sat in a semicircle, papers untouched, coffee cooling in porcelain cups. At the center, Alexander Pierce. Silent. Focused. And at his side, Eliza. No badge. No title. Just her. Meredith entered last, heels sharp, smile sharper. Alexander, she greeted, perfectly poised. I hear this is urgent? It is, he said calmly. Take a seat. She did. Eliza placed a folder in front of each board member. No explanation. Just numbers. Meredith's smile wavered. What's this? An audit trail, Eliza replied. Your department approved it. Meredith laughed, low and smooth. I manage PR, not finances. True, Alexander said. But you signed off on vendor contracts. He opened his own folder, flipped to a page. Page 5. Authorizations from your login transferred to Evermark Solutions. A vendor dissolved last fiscal year. Murmurs. Meredith's smile froze. Anyone could have used my login. Except, Eliza said, the timestamps match your calendar. You were logged in from your own IP address. Same device, same ID. Multiple times. The room shifted. Eyebrows raised. You're accusing me of embezzlement, she snapped. I'm presenting facts, Alexander said. And asking for a response. Meredith stood. This is outrageous. You're letting Hera Waitress accuse me? No, he said firmly. I'm letting a brilliant analyst present evidence. She turned to Eliza. You really think you belong here? Eliza didn't flinch. I think people who steal don't get to ask who belongs. Gasps. Audible. Meredith's face darkened. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Alexander stood. No, Meredith. You didn't. He turned to security. Escort her out. Full IT lockdown. And initiate external investigation. Meredith's jaw dropped. You can't, I just did. 2 guards entered quietly. She didn't fight, but her glare burned as she passed Eliza. This isn't over. Eliza stood tall. It is for you. When the door closed, the room exhaled. Someone started clapping. Then another. Eliza blinked. Applause? She wasn't ready for that. Alexander waited for silence. Then turned to her. You still think you're temporary? She looked at him. I think I just started my permanent record. They both smiled. And somewhere outside that boardroom the company changed forever. Friday morning. The calm after the storm. Meredith was gone. Her office sealed. Her access revoked. But the echoes remained in emails, in whispered conversations, in how people now looked at Eliza. Not with contempt. With curiosity. With respect. Maybe even a little fear. She walked through the halls of Pierce Capital like someone who'd just survived fire and carried the smoke in her stride. At her desk, a small envelope waited. No name. Just one word on the front, stay. Inside a formal offer letter. Position Director of Strategic Risk Analysis. Salary more than she'd ever dared to imagine. Start date immediately. Her breath caught. She read it 3 times, then tucked it into her bag without a word. Inside Alexander's office, the man himself stood by the window, arms crossed, looking out over the skyline like it owed him answers. You read it? He asked when she entered. I did. And? I'm not a director, she said. You're not a waitress either. She met his eyes. That job, it changes everything. It validates everything, he corrected. And you earned it. She hesitated. Why me? Because I trust you to tell me the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Silence. You know, she said quietly, people still think I'm here because of you. He raised an eyebrow. Aren't you? She smirked. I'm here in spite of you. A long pause. Then Alexander smiled fully, freely, for the first time. Touché. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked the screen. Then looked up, face serious. The annual gala is tonight, he said. You're expected. She blinked. Expected? As my guest. Her heart skipped. As your +1 or your consultant? Yes. That's not an answer. It's not a question. He walked past her, handed her a slim envelope. The invitation was gold embossed. Heavy. Real. Be ready by 7. I'll send a car. She stared at it. And for the first time in a long time she felt seen. Not pitied. Not used. Seen. That night, she wouldn't be crashing a boardroom. She'd be walking into Uni in her own terms. 7:03 p.m. The car door opened in front of the Grand Meridian Hotel. Lights sparkled. Cameras flashed. And Eliza Quinn stepped out, not in a uniform, not with a tray, but in a midnight blue dress that didn't beg for attention. It commanded it. Hair swept back, shoulders bare, eyes sharper than diamonds. She barely recognized herself. But the look in the valet's eyes, the hesitation, the double take confirmed it. She wasn't invisible anymore. Inside the ballroom, gold chandeliers bathed the room in warmth. Silk gowns swept marble floors. Laughter floated with champagne. This was the world Eliza used to serve. Now she was part of it. Sort of. At the far end of the room stood Alexander. Black tux. Impossibly crisp. He was talking to a board member, but the moment he saw her, his words stopped. Just for a second. Then he excused himself. Crossed the room without rush but with purpose. Eliza, he said. Alexander, she replied. You're late. You said 7. Not sharp. He smiled. You look like a lawsuit waiting to happen, she teased. He chuckled. Like someone I'd negotiate with and probably lose. They didn't touch. But the space between them was charged. I almost didn't come, she admitted. I thought this would feel fake. Does it? No, she said. It feels earned. Before he could respond, cameras turned. A reporter approached. Mr. Pierce, can we get a photo of you and your partner, Alexander said. Eliza blinked. Business partner, he clarified with a smirk. The reporter smiled, snapped the photo, and moved on. Eliza turned to him. Nice save. Wasn't saving anything, he said. Just clarifying. They moved through the crowd together, fielding questions, shaking hands. Some faces smiled too wide. Some eyes still judged. But no one ignored her. Not anymore. Halfway through the evening, a woman in a red dress stepped forward. Well, well, she said, holding her wine glass like a dagger. The infamous Eliza. Eliza smiled. I didn't realize I was infamous. I thought I was just inconvenient. The woman raised an eyebrow. You think this is permanent? No, Eliza said. I know nothing is. But some things are worth fighting for. The woman scoffed and walked away. Alexander leaned in. That was Meredith's cousin. Explains the attitude. I liked your answer. I liked saying it. Later, as the gala wound down, Alexander stood beside her near the balcony doors. You handled tonight well. I survived it. There's a difference? Yeah, she said. One of them leaves a scar. The other? A legacy. He looked at her. Really looked. You don't owe anyone an explanation, Eliza. She tilted her head. Even you? He didn't answer. Because suddenly, the space between them wasn't professional anymore. It was personal. Deeply. Undeniably. Personal. The gala ended. The music softened. The guests faded out like the final notes of a symphony. But Eliza and Alexander stayed behind alone on the balcony, the city lights below like scattered gold. He leaned on the railing, hands in his pockets, voice quiet. When my father died, I thought power would make me feel safe. Eliza turned. Did it? No. Just busy. She nodded. I know that feeling. Being too busy to feel broke. He glanced sideways. Or alone. Silence stretched. Not uncomfortable, just raw. Then she asked, why me, Alexander? Of all the people you could have trusted, he looked at her. I didn't trust you. Her brows lifted. Not at first, he clarified. I noticed you. Because you didn't play by their rules. And you weren't scared of me. I was terrified, she admitted. I just hid it better. He smiled. Exactly. She folded her arms. I'm still not sure where we stand. I mean, am I your employee? Your friend? Your charity case? You're the one person in this building who doesn't ask what you can get from me. That's not an answer. He stepped closer. You're not just in the room, Eliza. You've changed the room. She felt something catch in her throat. I didn't come here to change anything. You did anyway. His hand brushed against hers. Nothing obvious. Just enough to say I see you. Then, without thinking, she said it, if I wasn't poor, if I didn't come from where I did, would you still have looked at me? He didn't hesitate. If you weren't who you are, I wouldn't have looked twice. That stopped her. She didn't know whether to be flattered or hurt. But then he added, you're not remarkable in spite of where you come from. You're remarkable because of it. That hit deeper than any compliment she'd ever heard. I should go, she whispered. He didn't stop her. Didn't ask her to stay. Just said, Eliza, this isn't the end. She looked back. I know. It's the part before everything changes. And with that she disappeared into the night. Not defeated. Just deciding. Saturday. 10:12 a.m. Eliza sat at her tiny kitchen table, barefoot, hair in a messy bun, staring at the offer letter again. The same one she hadn't signed. It sat next to a cold cup of coffee and a voicemail from the diner manager begging her to pick up extra shifts. Her world was split in two. One side offered power, prestige, and Alexander. The other? Familiar struggle. Predictable pain. Her phone buzzed. One new message from Alexander Pierce, take the day. I'll be at the foundation site. No pressure. Just show up. No pressure? She laughed once, dry. Then stood. By noon, she was at the construction site for Pierce Capital's new youth center, his father's last charitable project. Alexander was there, sleeves rolled up, talking to volunteers. He didn't notice her right away. That gave her time to breathe. Observe. He wasn't the man from the boardroom. Or the ballroom. He was just human. Still sharp. Still controlled, but different. When he finally saw her, his face shifted. Not shocked. Relieved. You came, he said simply. She nodded. I figured you'd need someone to tell you you're lifting that beam wrong. He smirked. I was hoping for moral support. You got skeptical sarcasm. It's what I do best. He handed her a hard hat. No clipboard today, she joked. No board meetings. Just building something that lasts. They worked side by side carrying boxes, organizing supplies, helping paint the undercoat walls. It was messy. Real. At one point, she stopped, looked around. This place it matters, doesn't it? To me, he asked. More than profit margins ever will. She nodded. And before she could stop herself, the words came out, I haven't signed the offer. He turned, silent. I don't know if I'm ready to step into something that feels this big. He wiped paint from his hands. Eliza, you already have. She shook her head. I'm not like you. Exactly, he said. That's why it works. He stepped closer. This isn't about giving you a place. It's about building one together. She stared at him, heart thudding. I'm scared, she whispered. So am I, he admitted. Silence. Then, finally a breath. I'll sign it, she said. His eyes didn't change. But the corners of his mouth did. Good, he said. Because we're just getting started. And for the first time in her life Eliza believed that didn't mean the end of who she was. It meant the beginning of something stronger. Monday. 7:45 a.m. Pierce Capital. Eliza stood in front of the same revolving glass doors she used to clean fingerprints from. Only this time, she didn't hesitate. No coffee tray. No apology in her eyes. Just a badge clipped to her coat, Director Strategic Risk Analysis. She stepped through the lobby. Every footstep echoed like punctuation. Like she was underlining the sentence, I belong here. Not because someone let her in. But because she walked in. The elevator dinged on the 42nd floor. People greeted her now. By name. By title. At her new corner office, yes, corner, a bouquet sat on the desk. No card. But she didn't need one. She knew. She smiled, set down her bag, and opened her notebook. Old pages. New story. Moments later, a knock. Alexander stood in the doorway. Tie slightly crooked. Coffee in hand. For you, he said. She raised an eyebrow. You brought me coffee? He smirked. It's terrible, but it felt symbolic. She took it. Thanks. You're still not forgiven for putting partner on that gala introduction. I meant it. Her smile softened. They stood in silence, sunlight pouring in. Then he asked, almost shyly, so what happens now? She thought for a moment. Then stepped forward. This happens, she said. And kissed him. Not dramatic. Not fireworks. Just honest. Soft. Real. Earned. When they pulled apart, she added, I'm still me, you know. Messy. Opinionated. Broke at heart sometimes. He nodded. And I'm still me. Control freak. Emotionally constipated. Wealthy. They both laughed. Then he said, let's make a mess together. Months later, a photo hangs in the company's lobby. Not of a deal. Not a building. But of a woman. In a blue dress. Walking into a ballroom alone, proud, fierce. Captioned, Eliza Quinn, proof that power isn't inherited. It's chosen. Because in the end she didn't just walk into a boardroom. She changed the board. And somewhere between spilled coffee and rewritten contracts she found love. She found respect. But most of all she found herself. The end.